Welcome, everybody, to Attic Continues episode 303. 303 coming at you right now, live through the power of the internet. Podcast what's up every other Monday, in which we talk about video games related topics. I'm your host, Stafa, and with me this week, I want before he starts talking, I want everyone to get their ballots out and start voting. Who do they think is the guest of the week? This mystery guest, this special mystery guest. Time is up. It is.
It's Kevin.
Yeah, it's Kevin. Who would have thunk? All right, how's it going, Kevin?
It's going fairly well. I'm a little sick, but other than that, I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Hopefully you get well soon.
Thank
I'll
you.
I'll send you the good vibes from California over to you.
I can feel them now.
Oh, okay. You're getting better already?
Yep.
All right, great. It's it's curing your cancer and everything.
The cancer I didn't know I had.
your broken arm that you had for like 3 months
Oh.
that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, that's weird. But glad it's fixed now.
I mean, it's not broken anymore, right?
That is true. That is true.
There you go. So anyways, this week's episodes will include the following segments. The main topic, which will be tabletop gaming. We're going to talk about some board games or card games or tabletop games. We're going to talk about some of those that either we played recently or that we feel are worth talking about. Kind of like the what we've been playing segment, but for tabletop. I figure it's time we start talking about some of those cards, those Yu-Gi-Ohs. You're wrong, Kaiba. My grandfather's deck has no pathetic cards. You've activated my trap card. That's all I know about Yu-Gi-Oh. That's the extent
It's been years since I had done anything with Yu-Gi-Oh. I remember I used to have cards. I used to watch the show, but that was very, very long time ago.
I've never played it, nor have I watched it, so that's the extent of everything I know. After that, we got a big announcement, and then we got some news topics to discuss. But before we start going over any of that, I want to do one quick disclaimer that all opinions expressed on this show are of our own and not of our employers, whether past, present, or future. Wow. So let's get going and start talk about some tabletop gaming games we played recently. Kevin,
Yeah.
yes, would you like to go first and talk about a game?
Sure. So recently I actually went to PAX South, which is why I'm sick. But PAX South. Yeah. So we actually did play a couple board games that I hadn't played before. So I'll talk about those. But then we also played one card game that I have played fairly often, but I will also mention that one because I like it a lot. So the first one is that card game that I have played before. It's called The Grizzled. This one is a card game that takes place during World War I, and it's not a very easy game. It's actually one of the harder games that I've played, even though the rules are very simple. The setup is very simple, but the game itself has a lot of complexity and actually can get very difficult. So you always have a hand of cards, and the number of cards that you have is different depending on what round it is, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But basically, each card represents a different situation during this war. So you'll have a scene on the card, and it's usually just like a deserted battlefield. But the conditions of that battlefield will be different. So sometimes you'll have a card that has the battlefield covered in snow, so it's like during wintertime. Sometimes you'll have that same image, but it's raining, or it'll be at nighttime, or the conditions will be clear, so it'll be like a sunny, clear day. And then also sometimes on those cards you'll have a symbol of something on there related to the war. So you'll have like the picture of a whistle, picture of a gas mask, or the picture of a tank shell. So the idea is each person goes clockwise around the group of people, and everyone has to put a card down. But the issue comes in that you can't have three or more. You can't have more than two of any kind, or you lose that round. So if you have 3 matches of a specific thing out of all those cards, then the round is lost. So let's say you have one person goes down, the first person puts down just a knight card. Then the next person puts down a knight card that also has a whistle on it. So now the battlefield already has 2 knights and 1 whistle. The only cards that don't count as anything negative are the clear days. So if another person puts down a rainy night card, that's 3 knights, and that actually causes the round to be lost. But typically, most people will avoid losing rounds. So if they see that there is already 2 of any condition on the cards on the battlefield, they'll have to either play a different card or they'll have to withdraw. Now, if you withdraw, you basically are done playing, so you put your cards down, and then you have to send support. So at the beginning of the game, everyone gets these little support cards, or these little support tokens, and the tokens will have either 1 arrow or 2 arrows in either direction. So it'll either be like 1 arrow to the left or 2 arrows to the left, or 1 arrow to the right or 2 arrows to the right. So without showing anyone else in the group what token they're going to put down, they select a token and put it face down on their cards, and then they wait until everyone else is done or everyone else withdraws. So the support, basically what happens is once everyone has withdrawn, everyone turns over their support tokens at the same time, and then you pass that token to the person that token indicates. So if it's 1 left, it's just to the person to your left. If it's 1 right, it's just to the person to your right. But if it's like 2 left, then it goes to 2 people. It goes 2 people down to your left, or
so
whatever.
How many players is this game?
So it's, I think, a maximum of 5, minimum 2. So 2 to 5 players.
2 to 5. So like if you're playing with just 2 players and you go 2 to the left, it ends up to you, back to you?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, 2 players honestly is not the ideal situation for this game. I think 3 players is the best in terms of
minimum.
Yeah, like in terms of minimum. It's also easier with 3. The more people you have after 3, it becomes way more difficult. So the reason that you would want to support people is because there's another type of card that someone can have in their hand, and they're called hard knocks. And hard knocks can be various conditions. So they'll have a picture of like a red lightning bolt. And so there's different kinds of hard knocks. There's phobias. There's I forgot what the other one is, but so basically the hard knocks will be a permanent condition. So sometimes there'll be something like whoever plays it, now there's a permanent night in the battlefield. So if they play that hard knock, it has the picture of nighttime on it. And that means that regardless of how many cards are on the battlefield itself, there's always going to be 1 night. So if now 2 people play night cards into the battlefield, that counts as 3 because that person has a permanent one on their side of the battlefield. And there can be hard knocks for every single one of the conditions. So you can have a permanent snow, permanent night, permanent rain, and then permanent one of each of those conditions, like the whistle, the gas mask, and the shell. Then there's also another type of hard knock, which actually is like a modifier to your player's abilities. So there's something like there's one called mute, and basically you cannot communicate. If you play that card, you cannot communicate or talk to anyone until that hard knock is gone. So you can't even you're not technically supposed to even point to things or nod to confirm something, because that's still communication. So no one can communicate with you, and that kind of makes it hard, because even though you're not supposed to indicate what cards you have in your hand to everyone else, even though it's like a cooperative game, there are ways that you can kind of convey some sort of message about what you're about to play, or what cards you do have, so that people can plan ahead and not play the cards that maybe you have the only, like if you have only night cards, then you obviously wouldn't want anyone else to play night cards, because then that reduces the chances that you get to play a card, because you'd have to withdraw earlier. And but those, like the mute card, you can't communicate at all. And then there's another one where it's like you can't withdraw unless you have one card. So if you have more than one card in your hand, you cannot withdraw. And then there's another one that's like no one else can withdraw if there is if there's like a certain type of card on the battlefield. So that makes it even more difficult, because no one else can withdraw, and it's not just you. So all these hard knocks start adding up, and if you have 4 hard knocks on yourself, then you lose. You're out of the game. So that's the reason for those support tokens, is at the end of the round, you basically, if someone gets the most tokens of support, then they get to remove 2 hard knocks from themselves. And so that could come in handy. So like if you see that someone has a hard knock that's really affecting the whole game and causing everything to go negative, like pretty much causing everything to go bad for everyone, then you would hope that everyone can support that one person, or the majority can. And then that way they can remove those hard knocks. But the problem comes in that you don't know what support tokens everyone else has, and everyone may not have the ability to reach that person. So like with a group of 5, you can't reach someone at the opposite end of you, because with the because you may not have all of the like you may not have enough 2 left tokens or 2 right tokens sometimes. And then so every time you support someone and they get those support tokens, and they keep them, and then it's their tokens to give out the next time. So it can get very difficult in terms of just having the right tokens to support the right person, because if not everyone has the same plan to support the same person, then it may end up with the wrong person getting the most supports. Or you may have more, like, if 2 people have the same amount of supports, then it doesn't count, because it only works if one person has the majority of the support. And then there's some other mechanics on top of that, like each round one person is like the dealer, and so I think I mentioned earlier that you can have a different number of cards in your hand each time. The first round you always start with 3 cards in your hand, but the next person may decide you only want to have 1 card added to your hand. One thing I did forget to mention is that at the end of the round, you keep the cards that you didn't use in your hand. So you start off with 3, and if you only used 1 and you still have 2, but then you withdrew, you start with 2 cards in your hand, and then that just makes it more difficult, because you're adding up cards every time you start a round. And so there's 2 piles that I also forgot to mention. There's 2 piles. There's the peace deck and the I forgot the name of the other one, but it's like the bad condition. It's basically the like not peace.
War.
Yeah, kind of like that. So what happens is you draw your cards from the peace deck, and at the very end of the peace deck, there's a picture of a dove with an olive branch. If you finish the round with that with the dove showing, then you win the game. However, if you at the other deck, the war deck, if that last card, which shows a picture of like I forgot what it actually picture is on there, but if that card shows, then the game is lost completely. So at the end of each round, everyone counts how many cards they have left in their hand, and that number of cards gets added from the war deck into the peace deck, and then you start dealing out the number of cards for that round. So that's why sometimes you may want to only deal one card out, because if everyone already still has a ton of cards in their hands, you don't want to give them more. So you would just deal out one. If there's not very many cards out, then you'd want to deal more so that you can get to the peace card sooner. But then the more cards people have left over in their hands, that gets added from the war deck back into the peace deck. So yeah, I think I covered a lot of rules, and I don't know if all of that made sense.
Nope. I'm even looking at a visual of like the cards.
Yeah, it is, like I said, the setup is very simple, but the rules can get pretty complex. Because like all you're really doing is you shuffle the cards, you deal out 3 cards, or you deal 25 cards to the peace deck, and then the rest into the war deck, and then you just start from there. So it's, yeah, the complexity and the depth of the simple card game can get to the point where it can get very frustrating, because you're starting to have opposing goals with your cooperative members. And the thing is that you're all cooperating because you all want to win. You're not trying to make anyone lose. There's no competitive play to this, but you're not allowed to show anyone else your cards. You're not allowed to directly plan something out. And so people may have different goals in mind, and then that can just lead to a lot of mess, because, you know, like, especially with the support tokens, if not everyone is on board with giving support to the same person, or they just can't because they don't have the right tokens to give out, then that can just lead to a game that fails very quickly. And I think I don't remember how many times I've actually played this game. It's been several, I've lost count, but I think we've only won the game like 3 or 4 times out of dozens of them. So it's not a very forgiving game, but it is simple, and it's like easy to set up, because it's not like a game like Arkham Horror where you take 45 minutes to set it up. This can be set up within 5 minutes or less, and you can also lose the game within 5 minutes or less.
I'm noticing that the artwork looks inconsistent, or at least on this screenshot that I'm looking at, or this photo I'm looking at, in which it shows like, sure. Let me go full screen for a moment, please. Maybe. I don't think Google Hangouts wants to do it.
Yep.
Okay, it doesn't want to do it for some reason. Okay. No screen share is working. All right, but anyways, so like this photo that I have in front of me, like it shows the dudes, and like some of them look like they're shaded, you know, like they're shading to the artwork, and others they look like the majority of them have flat coloring. So this looks very inconsistent.
That might be like a mix of editions, because I think I don't remember seeing any shaded characters out of the ones that I've played. And like one of my friends has, or 2 of my friends have the game, and I might end up buying it too at some point. But I don't think I remember seeing shaded ones. It might just be like different editions of the game had different art styles, and they may have somehow gotten mixed up.
But yeah.
I know speaking the rules is a little bit confusing, but if we play a couple rounds, it actually it becomes very intuitive very quickly. And like I mentioned, the setup takes less than 5 minutes, but it's one of those games that requires a lot of strategy, a lot of planning, and it's not very forgiving. So if you like games that are hard, this is definitely one that I recommend.
All right, so I guess I'll talk about game I played. I know, like you mentioning the Grizzled reminded me about a game that I have, but I've already talked about on the show recently, and I didn't really play it recently. Well, I'll just name drop it real quick. Battle for Hill 218, which is like a 2-player one-on-one game that's themed after World War II, not World War One. But it's a very simple game. It's really hard to find though because it's no longer in printing. You can get the sequel on Steam though, which is Battle for Sector 219, which is more of a sci-fi themed rather than World War II themed. I haven't played it yet, the Sector 219, but it looks like it's basically, for the most part, the same game, except rather than having World War II artwork, it's spaceships and stuff. And I'm assuming there's a few different units, but I already talked about 218 earlier in the previous episode, so I'm not gonna spend time talking about that. But over the winter break, I went to visit some family, and we played some board games. And so one of them that we played Uno, which like everyone knows how to play Uno.
Yeah.
Like it's like the staple card game at this point. It's simple, it's easy to learn the rules, it's a fast game to play, and it's fun. That's the most important thing. It's fun and simple. But so one of the guys that was with us, he introduced me to Muno, which is like, so like him and his brothers like made up this new version called the Muno, which is Uno with money. I'm like, Uno's already perfect. Why are you changing it up? And yeah, I'm not gonna like lie. This is obviously this is not a better version of Uno. It's actually worse. But so the way how this is different is that he basically got some paper and like cut out some fake dollars that he made. Like he made hundreds, 200s, and 500s. And everybody started off with, I think, like $1,500, something like that. I can't remember, or 1,200. Either way, so everyone has money, and when distributing the cards in the beginning, he gives 3 at a time. So 2 cards facing down, 1 card facing up, and it's like, okay, this is for you, Kevin, and then if there's like a valuable card that's facing up, other people can be like, oh, I'm going to put down $700 for that. And if no one outbids, then they get those 3 cards instead. And then they have to give the money to the player that it was going to go to. Now, the player that it was going to go to, they can outbid, but they don't give the money to themselves. They give to the person that was trying to, bid for the cards. So, so you basically do that until like everybody has like 9 cards. I mean, you can keep bidding for other people's cards to get more than 9, but you don't. What's the point of getting more than 9 cards? Because the whole point of Uno is to like get rid of all your cards. So, and then once we start playing, let's say I put down a +4, draw 4 and lose a turn card. The person that it was going to go to, for them to draw 4, like they can be like, oh, how about I give you $1,000? and I'll be like, no, not 4. And then they'll be like, okay, how about if I give you $1,000 and this turn the rotation around? Okay, all right. So the card still gets played, but it doesn't go into effect on them. So it's there's obvious issues with the rules. I mean, like there's really no point to the money other than the fact that you use the money as leverage to prevent somebody from playing a card. So I mean, I can like be fine and play the game with no money at all. Like if I'm out of money, I can still keep playing the game, but I can't bribe somebody to not play something.
Yeah.
So
it's, I mean, it's pretty much bringing like pay to win mechanics into a like fake money game.
Yeah, he was all proud of it and everything. I was like, dude, there's obvious issues with this game. He was like, oh, take that back to California with you. Tell your friends. Like, sure. Not gonna play this again.
Yeah, just by the sound of that, I think I prefer regular Uno.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying to them. I was like, how about we play regular Uno? They're like, no, we only have half the cards. Whoops. So yeah, Muno, don't play it. All right, Kevin, what else you got?
All right. So these next 2 games, I'll obviously not talk about both of them at the same time, but these were games I had never played before. So these are relatively new, and I may not remember all of the rules, but they were both pretty good. The one I'll talk about right now is called Spirit Island. This one, I think, if I remember correctly, the premise of this game is that it takes place on an island, and you and 3 other people. So it's a 4-player game, and so 4 people are
competitive.
It is cooperative. So 4 of you are playing as these like these spirits, or these like godlike spirits that inhabit this island. And there are people who are starting to inhabit this island, and are, I guess, in a way, like you're playing as, I don't know if you're necessarily playing as the bad guys, but basically these inhabitants are starting to they're starting to like input their own influence onto this island, and it's taking away your power over the island. So it's I don't want to say that you're playing as evil spirits and you're trying to take out all these people, but it almost felt that way. I'll have to look into the description again and see what the basically. So here's the description. It says Spirit Island is a complex and thematic cooperative game about defending your island home from colonizing invaders. So I guess in a way, like these people are trying to inhabit this island, and it's taking away your power slowly, and you're trying to regain or keep a hold on that power. So you play as different spirits, like there's rock, fire, water, and earth. Or no, not earth. I already said the rock. Air. And so it's like the 4 elements, and so the map is broken down into little segments, little areas.
It looks like this game was kickstarted.
I think it was, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
So there's 3 different kinds of units of the colonizers. So there's like the individual person, which represents explorers. There's a little hut that indicates a town, or it's like a small little building that indicates that they're making a small town. And then there's a bigger city token that signifies that they're now built a city in this area. So at the start of each turn, at the start of the game, you have places on the map that are already colonized, that already have cities, that already have towns, that already have explorers going through. And then that keeps expanding every round. So whenever there's cards that indicate which type of land is being targeted. So there's the explore, and then there's the build phase. So when the first card is drawn, it shows a type. So there's on the map itself, there's like forest, desert, say what was it, like a swamp type area, and then there's the rocky mountainous areas. So the card will show that one of those different types of areas, and that indicates what the colonizers are planning to explore next. So you can kind of get a bit of a head start and start planning that way. And then as the rounds go on, those cards shift into the next phase. So then, let's say like the first card that was drawn was forest, so that you know that they're going to be targeting the forest next. So then that card moves over into the explorer area, and then the card underneath that next one is drawn, so you can see what the next round would be. So let's say the next one is swamp. So now, because forest is in the explorer area, you actually put out the individual explorers in those areas, and then it shifts over so that the forest is now going to be in the build, and then the swamp, for example, would have been in the explorer. So then you start building a town into each of those forest areas, and then you put an explorer out into the swamps. So those cards indicate the turn of the colonizers, since they're kind of like the AI of this game. So as the spirits, you're trying to expand your influence, your power throughout these different areas, and trying to wipe out the colonizers, essentially, so that the island is all to yourself. So there's these little tokens that look like mushrooms, and those are your power. And if all of those are gone, then you lose the game, and you can't replenish power. So you have to try to save as much as you can without losing any. But so it kind of has almost like a risk type of matching combat system. So like each type of unit would have a certain number of attack points, and so the more of the enemies that are in your area, they can do more damage to your little power mushroom pod things, whatever they are. But also you can deal that damage back. So it's not like it's a simultaneous combat system. So they do damage to each other, and then you take out the token pieces based on how much damage was dealt. But each player also has their own deck of cards, and those cards will have different abilities on them. So there's and you spend energy in order to cast them. But each of these cards can have different abilities, such as being able to move your little your power mushroom things, whatever they are, to a different space. So if you know one space is going to be attacked soon, then you can spend some energy to move that so it's safe. Or you can have some abilities that can move the colonizers around so that they're not all in one spot. But each spirit has different strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, I think the rock or like the earth one is better at defending. And then I played the fire spirit, which causes fear. And so as fear builds up with all of my abilities, after a certain amount of fear builds up, it does it enacts another condition onto the colonizers. So then they have to deal with something because their fear built up. And the defender is good at placing defendable areas and also just moving things around so that their own people don't get attacked, and then they can also move the enemies around. And then I don't quite remember the exact strengths of the other two spirits, but so they all kind of have things that work well together. So it's a lot of planning and cooperative gameplay in this one. But then each person has their character sheet will have. I'm trying to find a good picture of it because it's been a while since I played this one. But yeah, so like your character card has these little indicators that tell you how much energy you have and how many cards you can play at each turn, and you can increase those by doing various things. So like your card will have a picture of like you can gain one extra energy reserve if you move some units around. So you can kind of play the field, and then you start getting new abilities, and then you could actually start building up more energy, so you can do more things per round. So at the very start, you'd have a very limited number of energy points that you could spend, and a very limited number of actual cards that you could play. But throughout the game, you can change that and make yourself more powerful and do more things as the game goes through. This one's a little bit more confusing to explain because even as we were playing it, we were having some trouble figuring out what we had to do. So this one probably isn't the best to explain without visual aids, but I thought it was pretty fun. It took us a few rounds to actually start understanding the rules completely, but I do recommend taking a look at this one. If you like cooperative games, this one isn't nearly as difficult. It's a bit more laid back. So if you like tabletop games that aren't completely demanding, this one is probably a good one to look into.
Yeah, like as far as like the overall like theme of the game, it kind of reminds me of Pandemic, except well, I mean obviously different
Yeah.
details, but in Pandemic it's about you have your map and the plague is spreading, and you have to cooperate to try to minimize the plague. And this one, it's like rather than a plague, it's a plague of humans.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good comparison. I do agree with that. It's a lot of putting your units in the right spots as these enemy units are spreading. But yeah, it's a very good comparison.
All right. My turn?
Yep.
Okay, so another game I've been playing. I mean, most of the games I've been playing are more simple than the ones you've been playing. But I played a Monopoly Deal, which is a card game, not
I
a
think
board
I've
game.
seen this one. I never played it though.
So the whole pitch for Monopoly Deal is that it's Monopoly, except you play it within 15 minutes rather than
15 hours, 15
exactly,
days.
exactly. Like Monopoly, like the board game takes forever.
Yeah.
Forever, and then but by the time it gets down to like the last two players, that's like 2 hours have gone by or whatever. So yeah, so anyways, in this game, you have like a stack of cards that you draw from. All the players start off with 5 cards. I believe each player draws 2 cards when it's their turn. So by the end of the turn, you can't have more than 7 cards. And if you have 0 cards in your hand in the beginning of your turn, you draw 5. I think that's how it goes. If you have more than 7 cards at the end of your turn, you have to put the remaining cards on the bottom of the draw pile. But so, anyways, in this game, you have your 5 cards in hand. Draw two, and then you have 3 actions you can do. or 3 cards you can play. You can put down money in front of you. Once you've placed money, that's basically money in this game is used to protect your properties. Because if you owe rent and you have properties on the on the table, then if you owe rent and you have properties and you don't have enough to pay for the rent, then you have to pay with a property, and the properties also have like a dollar amount on the corner, and that's only to basically pay the rent. Like if you're using a property to pay a rent, there's a dollar amount on the corner to tell you like how much you're paying. So yeah, you can either put down money to protect your properties, you could put down property, and you can the other type of card is basically an action card, and action cards can be either well, they can be like pay up rent, or it's my birthday, which means like everybody has to give you $200, or no, it's 2 million. The dollar amounts are in millions, so everyone gives you $2 million, or trying to think of the other stuff. Oh, there's an action card that forces a player to swap properties with you. Or there's a card that forces a player to give you their property. Or there's a card that forces there's one card, but there's like 2 of them in the entire thing. That forces a player to give you their Monopoly. A Monopoly is a complete set. Or I guess it's not a Monopoly. Just it gives the card forces the player to give you their complete set. So for the properties, there's basically on the card it'll say if you have one of this property, people owe you this much money, like 300, for rent or something like that. And then if you have 2, it'd be like 400. 3, it'd be 500. It depends on the property. Some of them are more expensive than others. Some properties, you only need 2 for a complete set. Most of them you need 3. The only property that you need 4 of is a railroad. Railroads, you need 4 of them. And once you have like a complete set, it's protected. You can't have anybody steal your property, or if you owe rent, you don't pay up with a complete property. Like the complete property is stuck together. The only way you can lose a complete property is if they have that specific action card, which there's only like 2 of them in the entire thing, that they can steal the entire complete set. So it's very rare for them to have that card that lets them steal the entire set. The goal of the game is to get 3 complete sets. The first person to get 3 complete sets wins. And there's also a card that's in the game. It's the only action card you can play not on your turn. And that is just say no. So if somebody lays down that card that steals their set, or steals a property or anything, or tells you to pay rent, they put down that card, you can slap down just say no. And that's also a valuable card to have. So yeah, I mean, like any card that's physically in your hand, you cannot like use that like to pay rent. You can't pay rent from your hand. You can't use properties from your hand. like the only stuff that you've played and put on the table you can use, except for that just say no card. And like once people get used to the rules and are accustomed to it, it's a quicker game. But like I did play a few games that were way longer than 15 minutes because people were taking way too long because they're overthinking it. And but yeah, I mean I like Monopoly Deal. It's very similar to Monopoly, you know, has a similar theme, similar vibe, except it's a lot faster. It basically removes the board that you move around, and also the win conditions easier. It's whoever gets three complete sets rather than whoever owns the board. Because that's the board game, right? Whoever owns the board wins.
I mean, for the most part, yeah. Like there are certain areas that that are better to own. I don't know if you have to. I think it's whoever gets. I guess if everyone else is bankrupt, then you win the game, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to own the whole board, but that does help. But the goal is basically to bankrupt everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a lot faster. And it's whoever has 3 complete sets wins. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I do remember seeing this, and I think I was with a couple of friends, and we were about to start playing it, but something happened, and we had to leave. But yeah, I this one does look interesting. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, I recommend it. I mean, it's you know, it has the whole. It's simple to play. It's fun. You know, kind of like Uno. Just
you
know, something simple that's different and requires a little bit more thinking than Uno. I mean, like you got like bluff people and you know, other players will be like, oh, he obviously has a just say no, otherwise he wouldn't have played that card.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta like bluff and like try to have some strategy to it, but you know, it's fun and you could play a few games in a row because of how quick you can play through it.
That's nice. All right. This last game that I have, also one that I had never played before. I've only played this once. But it's called The Shadow over Westminster. It has a Lovecraftian style atmosphere to it, although I don't think there is any direct reference to any of the Cthulhian monsters or anything like that. But it has a very similar vibe because it deals a lot with this darkness and that's overcoming London. So it's another 4-player co-op game. You play as 4 different agents who are trying to remain undercover and trying to solve this mystery of these weird things that are happening around the city. At the beginning of the game, there's also a cataclysm that you have to pick, but you don't know what the cataclysm is until later on in the game. So basically what we did is you just shuffle the cataclysm deck and then just place it so that the top card is the one that will be the one that's picked. But yeah, so you don't know what this cataclysm is until you have enough research points, which I'll explain in a little bit, to uncover what the cataclysm is. So each 4 of the players has their own special abilities. It's very similar to the idea of like Arkham Horror or Elder Sign, where each character has specific abilities that could come in handy at some point in the game. But so you're playing as these 4 different agents, and the difference between this one and other Lovecraftian games is that this one is a deck builder. So and it's also a board game, so you still have a board that you're moving around, but you're also building a deck, which gives you all your abilities and actions. So there's a few different types of cards that you can have in your hand. There's research, which is ultimately what you really want to have in order to complete all of the to solve all the mysteries happening around the town. You have currency, which allows you to purchase different cards, which give you different abilities. Sometimes those can be better research tactics, so you can do more research with one card because they'll have different research points. So the basic one is just one research. Sometimes you'll have cards that are worth 2 or 3 research. And then you also have exposure cards, and exposure basically is your agent being uncovered somehow. So like something's been reported about them in the newspaper, or someone took a picture of them and saw them there. And exposure ultimately doesn't hurt you. Well, it doesn't, like, exposure itself doesn't hurt you, but the issue is the exposure gets randomly shuffled into your deck of cards that you draw every turn, and they don't do anything. So they prevent you from drawing, they lower your chances of drawing currency and research. So in the end, exposure does hurt you, but exposure itself doesn't have any negative effects. So at the start of each turn, you start off with only being able to draw 3 cards. And so throughout the town, or throughout London, there's like 3 or 4 major locations. There's the university, there's, I think, like the museum or something like that. Then there's the underground, and there was another location which I can't remember at the moment. But so each of these locations has a certain number of things that can happen there, and they can only have a certain number of agents there at a time. And throughout each turn, darkness gets spawned somewhere. So that's also randomly drawn from a deck of cards, which has the name of the location on there. And during the darkness phase of each turn, you draw that card, and it tells you where darkness spawns. And then there's these little like little black cubes that you place in those locations to indicate how much darkness has come up there. And so each space can only have a maximum of 3 darkness, and if a 4th darkness spawns in that area, then 1 point goes towards the cataclysm. And if the cataclysm meter fills up, the game is lost. But you don't even know what this cataclysm is until you have enough research points to uncover it. So the majority of the game, or at least the first half of the game, mostly is building up your abilities by solving mysteries in other areas. So you're not even solving the main mystery yet because you don't know what it is. You don't know what needs to be done or what's even happening. But it's still accruing points throughout the game as you are exploring other areas and solving other mysteries. So different locations basically will have different types of things happening, but ultimately there's like a lot of fluff to each card that kind of gives an idea of what's happening. But the ultimate goal is you just need to have enough research points to solve that mystery. So you're not actually doing a lot of puzzle mechanics or anything like that. It's just you need to have the points, but you can only draw so many cards, and you can only have so many cards in your deck. So sometimes certain mysteries will not be possible to solve in the beginning because they just require too many research points, and you just don't have physically enough cards to do that, or you can't draw enough cards to do that. And then throughout the game, if you're getting exposure, then you're reducing your chances of drawing those cards as well. So it's a very simple game in terms of the process of going through it. You're essentially just starting off in an area. You pick a new location. Hopefully you can solve the mysteries. Sometimes you don't know exactly what the mysteries are before you go there, so it's not something that you can plan. And you can't leave until those mysteries are solved. But if you're stuck in a place for too long, then you start gaining exposure cards, which basically just adds a lot of extra junk to your deck. And some characters have some really good abilities. Like the agent that I played, allows everyone to completely discard one exposure card from their hand if they're all in the same area. So anyone in the same area as me could completely just take an exposure card from their hand and put it back into the original deck, not into your deck. So it's reducing exposure. And I don't remember the exact abilities of the other characters, but ultimately you'll eventually get enough points that you can go uncover the Cataclysm, and the Cataclysm is never a good condition, obviously. So it significantly increases the difficulty of the game. But like there was one, I think the one that we played was we had to, what was it? Yeah, we had to completely solve the mystery of the Cataclysm within 6 turns. So, and it was like 33 research points required. So within 6 turns, all 4 of us had to play the right cards so that we could maximize the number of research cards that we had and play them on the Cataclysm. We ultimately won by like on the very last round with 1 extra research. So we had like 34 research up at the end, but just trying to purchase the right cards, go to the right places to solve the right mysteries so that you can get the right amount of research cards to then play them back on the Cataclysm all within 6 turns was pretty difficult. But I think this game, it was interesting. I really liked it. I don't think it's one of my favorite Lovecraftian type games, but it was really hard, and I did enjoy it. So this is another one that I'd recommend for people who enjoy games like Arkham Horror or Elder Sign, and like those difficult Lovecraftian-inspired horror games.
Okay. The picture I was looking at did not help at all. I just see a board and a bunch of cards.
Yeah, it's kind of
figures.
It is a little hard to talk about board games like this.
Yeah.
Without having some kind of video component to like show the game as it's being played. But yeah.
I see pentagrams.
Yep.
All right. So one other game I played while I was visiting family is a game called Balderdash. Balderdash, not Boulder. Balder. So this game, it's like a game based off of trivia and bluffing. So one of the players, like after you roll a dice and see who's like the dasher, that's like the main dude. Basically they get a card that has like different like what's basically like either words or like there's like a list of things. I think there's like 4 or 5 things you can choose from, like a crazy word, or like for example, one of the crazy words is like omancy. Okay, and then on the other side it'll have like the definition, or other than the crazy words, it has like one of the categories like crazy laws. So for crazy law, one of them that we used was and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like in South Carolina, it's illegal to drive a horse-driven carriage unless blank. And then on the other side, it'll have like what's blank, the blank portion. So the dasher, they pick one of those, and then they on a piece of paper that everybody has, they have to write down the definition or the blank or whatever, and they have to try to either they have to try to like get it correct, or if they don't know it at all, try to make it sound plausible. And then the dasher collects all the papers that everybody wrote on. Once everyone has turned theirs in, the dasher then reads all the answers that everybody uh wrote down, and then we'll take a vote on each one. After I don't know if there's like a specific order, but the way how we did it is we had the dasher read them all and then read them again. We go, all right, who wants to vote for this one? Who wants to vote for that one? And then etc. So if a person writes the right answer, they get like a certain amount of points. If a person who has written an answer that is false, but everybody votes for it as if it's the right one, they get like a certain amount of points. And if the dasher, what is it? So if the dasher I can't remember if they get everybody to vote for theirs, then they get a certain amount of points. So there's like a certain amount of points that everybody can accumulate for doing different things. And then the winner of that round becomes the new dasher. Actually, I don't think we did that. I think we just rotated. Yeah. I can't remember if that was the rules or not, but so we just rotated around the room. Everybody became a dasher, and yeah, but that's pretty much the whole premise of the game. Like if you don't know the answer, you have to try to like write something plausible for your answer, and then hope people will vote for yours. And you gotta like make sure you keep a straight face and not hint at anyone to think that that's yours or whatever. So yeah, I know like there was multiple times where I was writing something so ridiculous I was busting out laughing. And so like when it came to mine, like everyone was expecting me to laugh at mine again, and I was like trying to I was working hard to like try to keep a straight face, like, oh, that has to be his. And I was like, no. So
very nice.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's an easy game, and you got some trivia going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, other than that, like I just want to say that the nice thing about tabletop gaming is that you can play a lot of tabletop games with people who don't play video games, because of the fact that basically the majority of tabletop games are turn-based.
Yeah,
there are some that aren't turn-based, but for the fact that the majority of them are turn-based, it makes it easier to get someone familiar with the rules and give them some time to think about it and get used to playing the game, rather than video games. A lot. There are very few turn-based video games that are multiplayer.
Yeah,
and majority of multiplayer video games require fast reflexes and knowing how to use a gamepad, and a lot of practice. Most there are tons of tabletop games that really don't need any practice at all. You just jump right in, and everyone on equal playing ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a huge appeal to tabletop gaming.
Yep. Indeed.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I think we can move on.
All right. But one thing that is always good, whether you want to go turn-based or fast reflexes, or if you're new to it or a veteran to it, it's always welcoming to all. StreamHost. It's a web service that offers unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They're also optimized to use content managers such as WordPress and many more features. All that just for $7.95 a month. And if you use the promo code out of continues or waive away the set fee, get your free domain registration.
That's always a good deal.
Yep. Make your website dedicated to tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
You can use WordPress so that you can easily, make a new post about what tabletop game you've played recently. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, so I got a big announcement this week. The announcement to end all other announcements. So next episode 304, will be the final episode of Out of Continues for the foreseeable future. I'm not confident enough to say that this is going to be just a short break. I mean, maybe years later I might come back and try to do this all over again, but at this point my work life is very busy. On top of that, I have other life changes coming up that is also going to consume the rest of my free time. And since I started doing this bi-weekly, on the weeks I don't do the podcast, I feel relieved that I'm not doing a podcast. So because of that, because I realized, I was like, wow, if I'm thinking, yeah, I'm not doing a podcast this weekend, I should probably wrap it up. So I decided I'm going to do only 2 more podcasts, 2 more episodes. This one and the next one will be the final. And so, yeah, gonna wrap up the show, and I'll likely keep the site up for a while. I'm not sure how long I'll keep it up though, because it does cost money to host the website. So I'm not sure about that yet. I haven't made up my mind on that, but it will stay up for a while. I mean, it is good until like sometime this summer. That's when the renewal is.
If you want to, I don't mind hosting the website for you if you just want to pay for the domain. But I have DreamHost, and I use that for quite a few things. So if you want me,
did you just say DreamHost?
I did.
I heard that they're a web service that offers unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth.
But yeah, I mean, if you decide that you want to keep the website up, I can host it on my hosting. If you just want to keep the domain live, I'll let you make that decision.
Sure. Thanks for the offer. I'll think about that. But yeah. Regardless, I mean the the backlog of episodes aren't gonna go away, but yeah, next week is sorry, not next week. In 2 weeks, it will be the final episode. So leave us all the iTunes reviews now. This is your last chance. get those in. And yeah. So let's get to it and start talking about some news. As I can't screen share because Google Hangout is broken for some reason. It's not letting me screen share. So that's fine. Yeah. So the first article I have here as far as the news, it's about Prince of Persia creator trying to revive the franchise. So some actress or sorry, a model and TV host, Chrissy Teigen. I have no idea who she is.
She's a model, but she's been pretty active in the gaming community.
Okay. So you're more familiar with her than I am. I have no idea who she is. But she posts on Twitter about how she liked Prince of Persia, and Jordan Mechner, the Prince of Persia creator, he responded explaining that he and others are trying to garner interest in bringing it back, and yeah, basically he's saying, "Yay, get loud and rowdy, so that we can get interest to bring this back." I am a big fan of Prince of Persia, and I would like to see Prince of Persia come back as well, whether it comes back in 2D or 3D. I wouldn't mind seeing Prince of Persia come back since I'm a fan of it. So the very last Prince of Persia game that came out, which was I think it was Forgotten Sands. That one I didn't really like. It was like an okay game, very average. It was an unnecessary game because at that point the Sands of Time trilogy has already ended.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, since it's about time travel, let's fit this in somewhere, anywhere. It's outside of time." So, it's because the game before that, I think it was the 2006. Let me see, Prince of Persia.
About the reboot, was that 2008?
2008, maybe. Yeah, I think that was 2008 because the Forgotten Sands came out. Well, here we go. List of Prince of Persia. So Forgotten Sands came out in 2010, the same year as the movie. And the 2008 game was just called Prince of Persia. I really liked that. And it ended with a cliffhanger. And it just didn't do well. For like a multitude of reasons that I feel like were not good reasons. Like people complained about the art style. I thought the art style was great.
Yeah, I like the art style.
People complained about it being whitewashed. Does that mean it's a bad game? No. I mean, like, it's not. I mean, it's not excusable for them to whitewash the characters. I mean, like a couple of white characters in a game called Prince of Persia, you know, but it doesn't mean it's a bad game. People complained about the game being too easy because of the fact that if you fall off a cliff, you respawn instantly. No, it does. The game was not too easy. If you play through the whole game, it is not too easy. I mean, I'm a guy who plays a lot of platformers, and that game was not easy. If you fall, especially in the later parts of the game, You fall off a cliff, you respawn like 5 minutes ago because there's certain parts that you need to like wall run for like 5 minutes straight or something like that. And it's not going to respawn you on the wall.
Yeah.
It's going to respawn you at the last spot you stood on. And that was like, a good 5 minutes of wall running. You're not, you got all that all over again. It's not an easy game. I thought the challenge, the difficulty level was fair. It was, it got pretty hard at some points, and I thought it was a fair game. So, like all those things I mentioned are the complaints I heard a lot of people say about it, and personally, I feel like they aren't justifiable. As far as people saying, it's a bad game. I thought it was a great game. And I would have loved to see a sequel to it. I don't really want to see a sequel to the Sands of Time because that trilogy ended. It ended, in a fine way, and then they tried adding the Forgotten Sands, which was unnecessary. It didn't add anything to it at all, and it was like it was a very mediocre game. But I wouldn't mind seeing a new Prince of Persia game. I would love to see a new Prince of Persia game. Everybody, go on to Twitter, get loud, get your tiki torches out. Oh wait, don't get the tiki torches out. We're not going there. Well, yeah, I would not mind seeing a Prince of Persia game.
Yeah, I just considering like the types of games that Ubisoft makes, I'm pretty sure that if they were to do it, it would be a open world game with lots of different things to do around the map. It'd be I think it would be kind of like that 2008 remake, because I think that one was also, it wasn't exactly open world, but it wasn't extremely linear either.
Yeah, so like the way how that was set up is that it had a open map. I think that's the best way to describe it. It was an open map. And like it would have like four different, like it would have one level that you start from the very beginning, and then it would have like I think like four different paths from there, and like each one of those paths basically take you to a level, and then once you beat that level or that area, that place can branch to like one of the other places that's next to it, or then a further place. So like it was a non-linear structure.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was pretty cool. And once you have like conquered those areas, it makes the world more like it opens up some doors to make it more easier for you to like traverse the entire world. And sometimes you'll have to like go from one part of the map to another. But once you defeat the areas, it opens up doors that makes it quicker to get through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that game. Hashtag sequel. All right. The next news I have on here. So Nintendo, the new Nintendo Direct had some announcements. Let's talk about those. They announced, here's a list of games that they announced: The World Ends With You, Pokemon Tournament DX DLC, Kirby Star Allies, Dragon Quest Builders, Hyrule Warriors Ultimate Edition, Mario Tennis Aces, Ease. What's that? 8? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
8. I'm pretty sure that's pronounced Ease. It's like YS. Or Yeez? Yeez. Yes. Yes, 8. Lacrimosa of Dana, Super Mario Odyssey update, which includes what does this include?
I think it's those bullet points down there.
Those are additional things.
Additional thing.
Yeah, but after the main story of Super Mario Odyssey ends, you'll be able to continue your adventure in Mario's epic new world with the help of Luigi. Mario's brother will open up access to a competitive balloon world mode where you can work to uh, uh, asynchronously hide.
Asynchronously.
Oh, there we go. That's a word. Asynchronously hide balloons for other players to find, or search for balloons hidden by other players. You'll be able to move up to global leadership. Basically, it sounds like a multiplayer mode that is unnecessary for this game.
Yeah.
And then adding other stuff to it as well. The other games announced SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy, which I'm assuming is a fighting game. That's starring the females from the SNK fighting games. Some, I'm assuming. I don't know. I didn't look at this at all. Mario Rabbids DLC, Payday 2, Fee and Celeste. What is this? The EA Originals is an incubator for the types of indie games you don't typically see from a publisher like EA. And this here, the company is highlighting Fee, announced last year. The game now has a February 16th release date, and Celeste from developer Matt Makes Games will head. This doesn't say anything. So it's two different games. One's called Fee, the other one's called Celeste. Oh, Fee is that game that had like that. It's like a really dark and purple game that had like this little fuzzy creature. And,
Hmm.
and Celeste looks like something ice related. I don't know. And Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze being ported over, and Dark Souls Remastered, which we'll talk about that a little later. So it looks like from this announcement, they're working on getting the majority of the big games from the Wii U over to the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean they've announced, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, Hyrule Warriors. Both those are like some of the bigger games from from the Wii U. And I can probably I could probably say it's a safe bet to say that Mario Maker will eventually get onto here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna be a matter of time for them to like work out the online stuff, because all those levels are saved on the servers on their end, and they gotta like get that figured out, because their online stuff is probably very different from the Wii U now for the Switch. So, they gotta figure that out. But eventually, I'm pretty sure that will make it to the Switch, and probably other games will get ported over as well, like the Wonderful 101. Can't really think of too many Wii U games that haven't already been announced to be ported over to the Switch. Mario Tennis. I mean, Mario Tennis is always really fun. And The World Ends With You. I hear a lot of people really like that game. I think it was a PSP game. Not PS Vita. I'm pretty sure it was a PSP game. And then Well, it was on. I think it was on PSP and Nintendo DS, the original DS.
Yeah, I remember hearing a lot about it from the DS. I don't remember about the PSP version.
And it got ported over to like Android and iPhone, but it's like a $18 game on Android. Who wants to pay $18 for a game on Android? Not many people. So, it's nice seeing that this game that I know a lot of people really like, or not a lot of people, but a small group of very vocal people, because only like 12 people played this game. It's nice to see that this game is getting ported over to a console that has a growing player base. Anything else worth mentioning?
No, think we can move on.
Yeah, let's move on and talk about the other big thing that Nintendo announced. Nintendo Labo. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Labo, like
Is it
label.
Labo or Labo?
Labo?
Labo.
Lamborghini? I saw somebody. So one of the guys at work sent an email out with like Nintendo Lambo.
Lambo.
Yeah, like a guy next to a big cardboard Lamborghini. But anyways, I haven't heard it pronounced out loud, so I thought it was Labo, like label. But it looks like I'm not really too sure how the cardboard is set up. Like if you buy something, it's like, okay, this is gonna be a piano or whatever. Or if like I'm really not really too sure how it's set up, but like you get this cardboard and you put it together and basically build your own peripherals.
Yeah.
That connect with the Joy Cons or whatever. So it looks like it's gonna be going for like a variety kit that can build like either an RC car or a fishing rod or a house or a motorbike or a piano. That'll go for like $70 for cardboard. And the robot kit, which is like this big backpack you put on your back, is go for $80. I mean, like all that, it just seems like it seems like overpriced cardboard, but it's considering that it's a peripheral. So it's like either you're gonna be having a plastic peripheral that's gonna be like too expensive and you're not gonna want it, or you're gonna have like this cardboard peripheral that's just I don't know. Like I know a lot of people are really hyped for this. I don't know about your opinion, Kevin, but like personally, like I'm not very hyped for this at all because it just seems so awkward. And how long is that cardboard going to last?
Yeah,
Cardboard,
so that was actually going to be my thing. Is I like the idea of having these cardboard things because it just adds like a physical crafting element to some of the games that they're going to make for this, and I think that's a cool idea. But my biggest concern is durability. Like, how long are these actually going to last?
yeah,
Because it is
like the
cardboard, and
piano. How long
yeah,
is that going to last?
and people are going to have to. Maybe not cut things, but they're gonna have to bend, and yeah, they might have to like tear out from like perforated cardboard pieces to
And
make.
what if you bend it incorrectly?
Yeah, and that's the other concern is they say that they have video instructions, so you actually can watch the instructions, like watching it being built as you're going. But there's obviously going to be some people who either don't watch those videos or they're going to accidentally mess something up. They're
Yeah,
gonna
accidents happen.
unless they just make it so that it's almost foolproof, where they pre-bend them and then straighten them out so you can kind of see the creases already there. I don't know if that's what they're planning on doing or how they're going to plan to do that, but there are going to be people who make mistakes, or pieces are going to be ripped. They're going to be pieces that don't come together properly, and then what are they going to do? Are they going to send them a free replacement for accidents like that, or are they just going to say, too bad, go buy
Buy
another one?
another one. Yeah. I mean, like this piano. I mean, when you play a piano, there's a certain feel to hitting those keys. Um, I highly doubt there'll be the same type of feel when you're
And
pressing on a cardboard piano.
yeah, I don't think that's important, honestly. I think the yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't think that's an important aspect because people are going to expect different quality because it is cardboard. People are going to
Mhm.
know that it's not going to feel like a real piano, and that's fine. I just think that, like, the piano looks really complex to build, and there's a lot of room for error in building something like that, and it is cardboard, so it's not going to last very long.
Yeah. I mean, I, as far as like what they show in the video, to me the coolest thing is the fishing rod because um I had a Dreamcast. I played a lot of Sega Bass Fishing.
Hmm.
So seeing like this like fishing rod and being able to do that again seems kind of cool. But after you like spin that rod so many times,
Yeah,
like the cardboard is not gonna stay. It's not gonna stay stiff. It's gonna get really loose at a certain point.
yeah.
Um, and then what do you do? Like buy another one? I mean, I feel like for the price that they're asking for these pieces of cardboard to put together, and that how many times you're gonna have to like rebuy it, you might as well just like have a plastic peripheral instead.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if the mechanical parts of these peripherals are going to have some kind of reinforcement. I don't know if they have plastic where, for example, like you were using the fishing rod as an example, where it's spinning around. Is there going to be a plastic piece that's actually spinning around, or is it all 100% cardboard? Um, like if it was plastic in the mechanical joints, then that would help with durability, but I highly doubt that's the case.
It from the video, like the impression I got is that the only plastic that will be in there will be the Joy Cons.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the impression I got
I'm not too excited about the price point for these. I mean, $70
for
for
cardboard.
cardboard, which, yeah, I don't think it's the right price. And I understand what you were saying earlier when you first mentioned the price of that these are essentially just peripherals. So you could buy a peripheral that's pre-built that would probably have better durability, or you can. But I think the cool part about this is the fact that you're building it. I just am concerned about the materials and how long it's going to last.
Yeah. I don't know. I know a lot of people are really hyped for this though, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm a party pooper or something, but I look at this and the two things that come up are the price point and the durability. Like is this really a better option than to have plastic peripherals? I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's fun to build it if you do it correctly.
Yeah.
Um, like as we already mentioned, you can mess up and bend something wrong, and that'll completely mess it up. I mean, that building stuff is something that a lot of people take joy in. I mean, that's why we have like people building model cars or Legos. You know, of course, people have fun putting this stuff together, but um, is that really going to make up for that high price point to get some cardboard to make these peripherals? I don't know. I personally, I think it's just plastic peripherals would have been better.
Yeah. But I do think that just this idea of creating these extravagantly mechanical pieces and letting the users build them, that's ingenious.
Mhm.
I just think that they probably would have been better off with different materials. But I understand that cardboard, making these out of cardboard has a novelty to it, like because you're building things that wouldn't normally be made out of cardboard. So the fact that you are building it out of cardboard has like this wow factor to it.
What if they like teamed up with Lego and had the stuff made out of Lego?
You were reading my mind because I was thinking the exact same thing. Like if they had teamed up with Lego or what are the other like cheaper, less well known
Mega Blocks.
Mega Blocks, yeah. Like if they had teamed up with one of those and used what they were actually Lego has a sub brand. It's the ones that are more mechanical, like they actually have
Connects.
yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah. That would have been cool too, where you actually have metal pieces that you can like with the Allen wrenches, you connect things, you build things that are actually mechanically movable. And I know Lego has like their robotics version as well, but the Connects are exactly I think what would have been great for some of these things. That would have been
Yeah, it's Connects, like K uh apostrophe NEX.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's just the thing is though, like Nintendo, you know how Nintendo is. They don't play well with others. Like if
Yeah.
they prefer to do everything themselves. Like especially when it comes to like hardware, and this is falls more on the line of hardware than
Yeah.
software. So yeah, that's my thoughts. And unless you have anything else you want to add onto it.
Nope. I think we can
All right, so let's
the
get
end
back to talking about Dark Souls Remastered. So Dark Souls, they announced that there's gonna be Dark Souls Remastered as well as a Dark Souls Trilogy box, which includes the remastered version of 1 as along with 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be out on PC, Xbox One, PS4, the trilogy set. The remastered will be available on Switch. I'm not sure if the trilogy will be on Switch or not. But yeah, you can now prepare to die again.
Yeah.
Edition.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the PC port will actually be correct this time, and you don't need to download some fan made hack to be able to actually play the game in HD.
Yeah.
But instead of fixing that version, they're gonna sell it to you again. Um, they also said that it'll be upscaled in a 4K resolution with 60 frames per second. I'm assuming they're also gonna like fix the issue with the weapon durability.
Yeah.
That was like basically weapons wearing out faster due to the frame rate because it was tied to the frame rate.
Yeah, because all of the physics, I think, were attached to the frame rate. So if you had a really high frame rate, then essentially, I think the way that was calculated was however many frames your weapon was actually making contact with the enemy. So when it was locked to 30, the number of frames that you hit was making contact was a certain amount, and that's how they calculated durability. But because people on PC could potentially play it on a higher frame rate, it was even though it was the same amount of time that the weapon was making contact, it was spanning over more frames. and so it counted as double the damage to the weapon itself. So the durability was always half of what it should have been.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for that. Unless you have anything you want to add.
No. I think I'm
All
good.
right. Let's move on and talk about Epic Games. So, looks like Epic Games is finding a lot of success in Fortnite at the moment. Mainly due to I'm assuming mainly due to the new battle royale mode that they added to like copy off of PUBG.
Yeah, and actually that makes sense because I think right now the main base game of Fortnite, you have to pay as like a founder to be able to access it because it's
Yep.
still beta version. But once the game releases, it'll be free. But right now it's like a closed beta for people who are investing in it. So it's like a Kickstarter style early access type thing.
Yeah, and the funny thing is like no one even cares about that mode anymore.
Yeah, and then they did the right thing, I guess, for them for their own business and released that battle royale mode,
Yeah.
which is completely free, regardless of whether you're a part of the founders program or whatever it's called.
Yeah. And so looks like their other games, Paragon and Unreal Tournament, they look very shaky as far as their future, especially Paragon, which only a few people are playing at the moment. So yeah, basically this article mentions that the future of those games don't look too well since most of Epic Games' fans are playing Fortnite right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like Paragon, like I heard it's better now, but when I played it, um it was basically just a MOBA that was in third person view.
So kind of like Smite, I guess, or was it like
Yeah.
that style?
Yeah, so I was assuming it was gonna actually play like a third person shooter,
Mm.
but it didn't play like that at all. And a lot of people stopped playing the beta because of that. Uh I I think they updated it so that the combat is more real time now. And plays more like a shooter. Cause that's what everybody wanted when they saw that. They're like, "Oh, awesome! This is gonna be like a MOBA except a third-person shooter," which it wasn't. It was more like Smite, just behind the shoulder camera.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe if they did change it to that, more of a shooter, they changed it too late because now no one's playing it any longer. Um, and yeah, and both well, all their games, Fortnite, Paragon, and Unreal Tournament, they're all on their um on their Epic launcher, which doesn't help them either.
Yeah.
It's not on Steam. Um Fortnite, at least it's on consoles. So people are playing on there. But yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the hype behind the Epic's games um has gone away after Cliff Bleszinski left because
Yeah.
he was their lead like game designer. Tim Sweeney being more the programmer, the technical side, and Cliff Bleszinski being more the design side. um Unfortunately, after he left, he didn't find success.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just it seems like a lot of hype behind their games has went away after he left. And I mean, personally, I I don't really care as much about their games now. Um, I mean, Unreal Tournament looks kind of cool, but not cool enough for me to be like, oh, I'm gonna install the Unreal the Epic launcher to play this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have anything you want to add?
No, not really.
All right, let's talk about our good friend of the show, 50 Cent. So 50 Cent, he was in 2 games, which was the first one being Bulletproof, which was like a PS2 Xbox game. Didn't do too well. And then the next one, Blood on the Sand, which was like a 360 PS3 game. And I haven't played any of either of those games, but from what I heard, people say that Blood on the Sand is so ridiculous that it's great.
Huh.
Like it doesn't take itself seriously at all. I mean, it's like basically what you expect out of a game that stars 50 Cent, unlike Bulletproof, which like tried to take itself seriously.
Yeah.
So obviously, if he wants to make a third game, he should go with that route and just make it like over top ridiculous again. But he mentioned that he'd be interested in doing another video game, and it would be um, based on the concept they developed for Tomorrow Today, which is an upcoming show on Stars, in which a veteran gains superpowers after being experimented on by a mad prison doctor. So it's Luke Cage. So yeah, either way, he said that if he makes another game, he'd base it off of that. So that sounds pretty ridiculous enough to me that playing as super powered 50 Cent. Go for it. You have my approval. I feel like we're lacking stupid off the wall games starring like celebrities, because there's 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. There was also Vin Diesel's Wheelman that was made by Midway. I don't know if you remember that game, but
I don't think so.
that was a ridiculous game. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a great game at all, but it was ridiculous enough for me to have fun with it. I mean, like it had a lot of elements that Sleeping Dogs took from, like car melee, like having the car like nudge left and right to hit the other cars. Sleeping Dogs took that from Wheelman, and I think Wheelman did it better as well. Also, carjacking, jumping from one car to another. Wheelman did that first. And also, it was more over the top and ridiculous because it was Vin Diesel flying like 30 feet from one car to another. While in Sleeping Dogs, it was a bit more realistic. Like you had to be like 5 feet away from the car or something like that. Vin Diesel just flew from one car to another. just like in real life.
Yep.
We need more ridiculous games with celebrities. I mean, Bruce Willis was the first. He was in a PlayStation game called Apocalypse.
Oh, I don't think I played that one.
It was weird. Well, anyways, yeah, do it, Fiddy. Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't believe so.
All right. This one's for you, Kevin. New Alien game in development. So, Fox Next, which is the game division of 20th Century Fox, they acquired Cold Iron Studios, and they basically want to make a sequel to Alien Isolation, which was the horror game, not Aliens Colonial Marines, which was the one that flopped.
Yeah.
But the Alien Isolation, the one that was like there was only one alien. And I heard people liked it, except people would complain that it was a bit too long.
Yeah.
But other than that, I heard people like that game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Kevin?
I'd be interested in seeing something good. I mean, it's unfortunate that there's only there's very few alien games that are considered good. Like a lot of them are, a lot of them have been receiving a lot of negative reviews. Like Colonial Marines was, I think, a recent one, well, relatively recent, and I don't think there's been any like an actual shooter that's been reviewed well, an alien game FPS that's been reviewed well. But I don't know. We'll see, I guess, what they plan to do with this. If they make it like Alien Isolation, I'm sure it'll do well.
The Alien versus Predator game in 2000 was pretty cool for this time.
I never played that one.
Yeah, like well, I never beat the campaign. They had 3 campaigns, and I never beat any of them because I got stuck in all 3 of them. So I was like, well, I guess I'll play the multiplayer. The multiplayer was really cool because it was basically 3 teams going against each other, and one for each faction: humans, predators, aliens. I think the predators were the least fun to play as. The aliens were really cool because you're climbing walls and you're really fast. And Marines obviously just played like any other first person shooter at the time. There was a like Alien versus Predator remake that came out, I think like I don't know, around 2010, I think. Predator game. So let's see. Yeah, 2010. Bam, I nailed it. That got mediocre reviews. Looks like it got 65 on Metacritic. But yeah. So I don't think they have like a time frame for this game though. And they said that let's see, there's veterans on the team that worked on a major titles such as BioShock Infinite, Metroid 3, Neverwinter, and City of Heroes. For the development of this game, Cold Iron Studio CEO Craig Z stated, "We are thrilled about the opportunity to explore an amazing and rich universe." He continued, "Our background in building online worlds and taking established franchises to the next level in interactive entertainment is a precise fit with our product roadmap ahead. We can't wait to share more information soon." So yeah, I mean, like even so it's like there's 3 of them that worked on those games I listed. It's not like the entire team worked on all those games.
Yeah.
And to say that you worked on those games is like me saying I worked on a AAA shooter. I mean, it's not really saying much. My name is going to be in the credits of the game, but I didn't really have anything to do with how good or bad AAA shooter I'm working on is going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else you want to say about this, Kevin?
I hope that they do something good with this. I mean, Alien Isolation was good. I actually didn't play it, but I watched a bit of it, and I think it worked well because of during that time the like the puzzle horror walking simulator game genre was pretty popular. I mean, you had games like Amnesia and Outlast and Soma and all these other very similar types of horror games coming out around the same time. And then this one was, the first one to use a big, well-known franchise that I can remember. And so it was using the right IP with the right genre of the time. So hopefully, if they do this sequel or this like next Alien game, they don't make it exactly the same style as Alien Isolation. I think that they would probably need to do something a little bit more, uh, in addition to just like going from point A to point B and hiding and trying to sneak past the alien and solving really simple puzzles, or like playing a lot of like fetch quests where like, oh, this thing is missing, we need to go find it, and then you go find it and then bring it back. But there needs to be, I think, some more gameplay elements this time around. Not necessarily combat. I think not being able to fight the alien is a major aspect, but I think that they would need to do something a little bit more, because the walking simulator horror genre isn't very. I think Alien Isolation was successful because of the time that it came out, and I don't think a game, if Alien Isolation came out now, I don't think it would have been as successful as it was back.
So you're saying now, instead of having a walking simulator, we should have like 100 aliens jump out of an airplane.
Everyone needs to be playing
onto a big giant map.
Yep.
And they all are naked aliens at first, but then they have to like get this stuff and start fighting each other.
Yes, so that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. It needs to be Alien Battlegrounds.
Alien Royale.
Alien Royale.
Perfect. Nailed it. Okay, so moving on.
Yeah.
Final thing I got on here is we got trailer 2 of the Tomb Raider movie, which is coming out in March 16th. March 16th. I watched the trailer. Did you watch the trailer?
I did.
What are your thoughts on the trailer, Kevin?
It looked interesting. Nothing in particular stood out to me as incredibly off-putting. There was a moment where actually like there were some scenes where they showed Lara Croft being exceptionally good at hand-to-hand combat. So I wasn't
her
sure.
Boxing.
Yeah, but so like, and so like I probably like I had to go back and I watched the trailer from the beginning again, and then notice that they show like a half second or like a 1 second clip of her boxing or kickboxing, and so that kind of gives a little bit of background to why she's proficient with combat. But so I had to review that, and they just didn't make it insanely obvious that she's already proficient with combat before getting into the situation with like exploring this island or whatever. But
yeah, she's basically Batman. She's both smart and athletic.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to like go back and confirm that, but because they didn't put enough emphasis on that backstory of her. But then they showed a lot of scenes with her doing some like insanely efficient hand-to-hand combat.
The thing that made me slap my face was when like she's watching the video of her dad and he's like, some secret organization trying to destroy the world. I'm like, why? Why are you going there?
That's true. I did forget about that part.
Yeah, it's like, so there was some sort of organization stuff in the game that this movie is like being, I guess, loosely based off of.
Yeah.
The one that came out, when did it come out? Like 2012?
Good question.
Um,
It was March 5th, 2013.
2013. Okay, got a year off. So yeah, the game that came out like 5 years ago. Looks like that's what this movie is like being more based off of, loosely. Changing some. I mean, like that game had a stupid story as well. I don't really remember the details, but it had something to do with like some ancient stuff and sacrificing a virgin and like something really stupid. And like it was also kind of like copying off of elements from the TV series Lost.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I mean, it was a dumb story as well, but it looks like they're changing it up a little bit, and it's still dumb. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I kind of expect a higher I have higher level of expectations for storytelling in a movie than I do in a video game because like for the most part in video games story takes a backseat to gameplay. Like if the gameplay is good, the story does not need to be that good. But in a movie, like story is everything. Or at least it either needs to have a really good story or it has to have really good action to make up for that the lack of story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a movie like Ong Bak. You know, that's a stupid story as well, but the action is amazing. So, you know, it makes up for it. You know, the Raid, another movie. You know, really great action. But you know, it has to have one or the other. And I mean, I can't tell whether the action's good or not, going to be good or not in this movie. I mean, it showed her like do a leap of faith at least 5 times within this trailer. So I expect her to be doing a leap of faith maybe 20 times at least in the entire movie because they haven't shown all the leaps that she's done. But like once they started talking about like the secret organization and her dad leaving her the video message for her, speaking directly to her, like I'm speaking to you beyond the grave. You must stop this organization. Like it's just please don't. Please stop it. You're hurting me. I can't handle this.
Yeah, unfortunately, movies that are based on games have a history of not doing very well.
Yep.
There are very few exceptions. I think, like, I actually enjoyed the Prince of Persia movie. I thought that one was good, even though it wasn't 100% accurate to the games. I actually thought it was a good movie. But I mean, I'm obviously going to be the people who have different opinions on that particular movie, but I just think that majority of video game to movie adaptations have never been.
I stand by my statement that Angry Birds is currently the best video game to movie adaptation.
I haven't seen that one.
It is. I mean, it's not an offensive movie. At times, it is fairly entertaining, and it is completely accurate to the video game. Like pigs come, they kidnap the baby birds, and then the birds get angry and slingshot themselves to destroy the castles. Like it, you can't get any more accurate than that. So, yeah, it was completely accurate, and it was fairly entertaining. I was like, oh yeah, I don't feel offended by this. At times, it made me chuckle. It's fine. So Yeah, best video game to movie adaptation.
Perfect.
Exactly. I mean, I don't see how else you can make a better Angry Birds movie. You can't.
Yep.
So
I
yeah,
also still haven't seen Assassin's Creed, but I'm not really.
I have no
wanting
interest
to see that super quickly.
One of my coworkers was telling me about that like 2 days ago, I think.
What did they say?
Well, he was mentioning how like in like every fight scene, it would be, you know, he's like doing something, and then it would like quickly show him in the real world doing it on the Animus.
God.
And like
I had a feeling that was gonna be.
Yeah, he said he said like the first time in the beginning of the movie, it makes sense showing it.
Yeah,
because like okay, he's playing it out, but then like them doing it every single time there's an action scene is unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't even know how I felt when they showed like the fact that the Animus is different in the movie. Like you actually have to physically do the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
As opposed to it being like the Matrix style where you're just plugged in and it's all in your mind.
Well, I mean, they gotta do it in real life because otherwise, how else is it gonna unplug from the Animus and then like just be able to do those moves? Come on now, come on.
Gotta train the muscles and
Yep,
be strong enough to do those things.
exactly. All right, that's it as far as news. Unless you have anything else you want to mention about Tomb Raider or any other news articles we haven't mentioned yet.
Nope, I don't think so.
All right. So, let's wrap things up. Listeners, this is your final chance. Final chance. Send those emails to podcast@continues.com. Send them. You have a couple weeks. Send those emails. This is your final chance. Questions, comments. Do you want to know what the meaning of life is? This is your final chance to learn. Anything. Send it to podcast@continues.com. So, yeah, the rest seems a bit unnecessary for the closing. So I'd like to thank my guest host for joining me today, Kevin.
Thank you, Staffa.
And with that said, I am Staffa. I'll see you guys one more time next episode. Ooh, sorry. Let me say that again. I'll see you guys one more time next episode. And if you're watching us on YouTube, click here to subscribe for one more video. Click here for the previous podcast over here, and then click over here for the podcast before that. Bye.